You are raising your children in a home that looks nothing like the one that damaged you. And something you cannot name is still getting through. Not the obvious things. Not the things you swore you would never repeat. Something quieter. Something wearing the clothing of a healthy Christian family. And your children are receiving it as normal. What if generational sin does not only travel through broken families? What if it travels most effectively through good ones? Because good families never suspect themselves? Because the pattern has learned to wear the right language, the right attendance record, the right reputation. By the end of this video, you will be able to name all 3 sins, and you will understand exactly which one your child is currently absorbing without either of you knowing it is happening. 2 families, same church, same zip code. Both would describe their home as Christian without hesitation. The first family has done everything differently from the generation before them. No addiction, no visible fracture, no obvious damage. They attend faithfully. They pray before meals. They love each other genuinely. And underneath all of it, a pattern runs that no one has named. Not because it is hidden, because it looks like normal family life. The second family found the pattern, not through a crisis, through a mirror. Someone asked them one question about their home, and the answer exposed something they had never examined. They stopped, assuming that the absence of obvious dysfunction meant the absence of generational damage. Their children are growing up with a vocabulary the first family's children do not have yet, a name for what was running. Exodus 34:7. God describes himself to Moses, maintaining love to thousands and forgiving wickedness, rebellion, and sin. Yet he does not leave the guilty unpunished, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children and on the grandchildren to the 3rd and 4th generation. Most Christians read that as a warning about broken families, but the original Hebrew word for iniquity, avon, does not mean catastrophic sin alone. It means a bend, a twist from what was intended, a subtle deviation from the original design. God is not only warning about destruction passed down, he is warning about deviation passed down, even subtle deviation, even the kind that hides inside a good family. The first sin is the one most likely sitting in your home right now, because it goes by a name that sounds like a virtue. The first generational sin, peacekeeping that teaches children that honesty is dangerous. This is the home where nothing explodes, where the atmosphere stays managed, where difficult conversations are avoided so consistently that the avoidance itself becomes the loudest message in the house. It looks like maturity. It feels like grace. It is neither. The child growing up in this home learns one thing above everything else. When something is hard, go quiet. When tension rises, find the exit. When the relationship requires something uncomfortable, protect the surface. Proverbs 27:5 says, "Better is open rebuke than hidden love." Hidden love. The love that will not speak the hard thing is still love. But it is love that has chosen its own comfort over the other person's growth. A child formed in that environment does not develop conflict resolution. They develop conflict avoidance reflexes, which they carry into marriage, into their own parenting. Their children inherit a home where nothing is wrong and nothing is ever fully addressed. And they call it peace. It is not peace. It is a pattern. 3 generations wearing the same silence. The reframe. The home that argues honestly and repairs quickly is safer than the home that never raises its voice. But the second sin is more dangerous, because it does not feel like sin at all. It feels like high standards. The second generational sin, love that arrives reliably after achievement and disappears quietly after failure. No parent designs this. It enters through a grandfather who withheld warmth until performance warranted it, through a mother who expressed pride in what the child did and said almost nothing about who the child was, through decades of a family that confused investment in outcomes with love of persons. The child in this home is not neglected. They are assessed. They learn early that the emotional temperature of the house rises when they succeed and drops when they fail. Their nervous system organizes itself around that pattern. They become high-functioning, driven, and quietly certain their worth is conditional. Ephesians 2:8 and 9. It is by grace you have been saved, through faith. And this is not from yourselves. It is the gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast. The grace of God that parents are meant to model is explicitly unconditional. It arrives before performance. It is not earned. When a child experiences parental approval as something they earn, they receive a theology of grace that directly contradicts the actual gospel. They will carry a performance-shaped faith into adulthood and wonder why God still feels distant even when they are doing everything right. The reframe. What you express delight in tells your child what you think they are worth. What comes next is a story from Scripture most people read as ancient history. It is actually a blueprint for exactly the pattern you are sitting inside right now. Isaac is remembered as a patriarch of promise, a man of covenant, a good man, and his home contained a generational sin so embedded that Scripture records it without commentary, as though it was simply the family's way of operating. Abraham lied about his wife to protect himself. Isaac did the same thing, same region, same words. 1 generation later. Not because he chose the pattern deliberately, because it was the atmosphere he grew up in. Then Isaac favored Esau. Rebekah favored Jacob. The conditional love produced a fracture that required a stolen blessing, 2 decades of exile, and a wrestling match with God before the family could begin to heal. No one in that family called it a generational sin. They called it family life. This is still happening. In good families, in church-going families, in families that would never recognize themselves in this story. The pattern does not need chaos to survive. It only needs silence. The third sin is the one nobody discusses in church, because it is the one the church itself sometimes teaches without knowing it. The third generational sin, faith performed publicly and not practiced privately. Every generation in this family has known how to show up, how to speak the language, how to present a Christian home to anyone looking in and inside the house. In the ordinary moments, in how money is discussed, in the response to failure, in whether God is spoken of with intimacy or formality. The private faith is a shadow of the public one. The child receives both signals. They are sophisticated enough to know the difference between the Sunday version of their family and the Monday one, and they draw the only conclusion available to them. Faith is public. God is for the audience. Home operates by different rules. Matthew 15:8. Jesus quotes Isaiah directly. These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. The gap between spoken faith and lived faith is not a modern problem. It is the oldest religious failure in all of Scripture, and it travels through bloodlines. Because children do not inherit their parents' beliefs, they inherit their parents' gaps. The reframe. Your child is not watching your theology. They are watching the distance between your theology and your Tuesday. You came into this video certain that generational sin was someone else's category. You were certain because your home does not have the obvious markers, because you have worked too hard and prayed too much and changed too many things for the pattern to still be running, but it does not announce itself. It wears the clothing of normal. Look at your child this week, not at their behavior, at their assumptions. Watch what they assume about conflict. Watch what they reach for when they fail. Watch whether the faith they are absorbing looks like intimacy or performance. They are not showing you who they are. They are showing you what is in the atmosphere, and the atmosphere has been there longer than they have. The pattern can end, not because you were strong enough to stop it, because Galatians 3:13 says Christ redeemed us from the curse, and that redemption is generational, not merely personal. You do not need to resolve everything tonight. You need to name one thing. The sin you recognized in this video that has been in your family longer than you have. Name it before God, not with elaborate language, with honesty. Unnamed patterns travel in the dark. Named patterns can be brought to the cross, and what is brought to the cross does not have to be forwarded to the next generation. Your child is still in your home. The pattern has not finished forming them yet. That window is the grace. If you are ready to name what has been running, if you are ready to let the pattern end with you, go to the comments right now and type, "It ends with me." That is not just a comment. That is a declaration over every generation that comes after you. And if a family came to mind while you watched this, a good family carrying something they have never named, send this to them today, because they cannot see it alone, and the child in their home is counting on someone who can.